You can learn more about the upcoming storm season and a free-to-attend spotter training class near you this month through next month. Warning Coordination Meteorologist Mike Moritz of the Hastings National Weather Service joins us now for more. Mike, why is a spotter training class a real good chance to get ready for severe weather? Also, how helpful are the classes for the National Weather Service?
For me personally, it gets me in the mood for spring, and that's warmer weather, and that's what I like. But for all of us, it gets us in the mood to know that thunderstorms are back in the forecast. And while, March isn't necessarily the busiest severe weather month, the busiest severe weather months are coming, April, May, and June. This is really what we want people to be ready for. And by having these classes, it gives us an opportunity to meet with folks across Nebraska and Kansas and help them be ready and help us be ready as well.
And a spotter training class hosted by the Hastings National Weather Service. Mike, what is planned this year, and does your presentation tend to vary from year to year?
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes it can be hard to come up with new ideas. This year, at least from the Hastings Weather Office, we're kind of doing 5 things you absolutely should know if you want to be a spotter, 5 things you probably should know that can really help you out. And then we're reviewing some events for our third part that are basically Nebraska events that look at it from a perspective of radar, but also from what it might look like from the field, from what you actually would see. We are about an hour and 10 minutes long. It's free and open to the public. It's always good conversation, and I always enjoy going out and visiting with the folks of the area.
Mike, going to throw that loaded question at you. How is this spring and summer looking for chances of severe weather?
The official forecast is favoring the dry side through much of the spring and into the summer. Temperatures about normal. I don't know what we can take out of that. When I look ahead a few weeks, maybe a month or two, I see a slightly warmer pattern setting up toward the very end of March, and April looks sort of normal to me. Some of our Aprils have been really cool the last few years, but this April seems to be about normal, which would be good on precipitation. I just think as we go through spring, I don't know that I'd count on anything more than normal for moisture. That may be good for planting season, but it may also be not so good if you actually need the moisture, and a lot of our area does.
Talking right now with Mike Moritz, Warning Coordination Meteorologist of the Hastings National Weather Service, learning more about the spotter training classes held at a location near you this month through next month. Mike, how helpful is the information from the general public when it comes to severe weather? Also, what are some great ways to relay that information to the Weather Service?
The information we receive from the general public really fills in the gaps. There's not a weather station in every town to measure the wind, and radar doesn't cover things perfectly. And I like to say, don't assume the National Weather Service knows the weather. Now, I've had people tell me that for 30 years, but the point is when people report, we know what's going on, and that information helps us make better decisions, which helps then in turn get out better warnings, which we hope will in turn help people prepare better. I think one of the best ways to get the National Weather Service information, if you're just sitting at home, is on social media, and that's Facebook and X. A quick picture out the window. We don't need just storm chasing. We don't need perfection, but having an idea of what's actually happening at those odd hours of the day and getting that information out really helps us out a lot.
Mike, what information is helpful from the public after a storm hits?
Well, again, it's great during the storm, but the big thing after the storm is what's been damaged. We do a monthly report that's been around for decades. It talks about different types of severe weather and its impacts. Crop damage, structural damage, it applies to everything. I think that's very important. We don't necessarily get a lot of reports after an event. Of course, the number one thing is we want people to be safe, but once the event is passed, then we can review that information, and all of that goes into a database which insurance companies use, for example, and researchers use to study storms. It is valuable information even after the storm passes.
In case someone wants to take a more active role in storm spotting in their local community, Mike, what are the steps to take?
Typically, our storm spotters are volunteers that are associated with the local fire department as well as those who work in law enforcement. But that doesn't mean there isn't a role, and I think the person to talk to in your area is going to be your emergency manager, and they can best decide what resource you might provide and how they could use that. I think just in general, though, if you want to learn more, come out to a Spotter Talk this spring. They're all across Nebraska and Kansas. All the weather offices are doing them, and it's just a good way to learn about weather in general. I hope that people will look at this spring as they go into it and have an open mind, but also be prepared and be ready to act if threatening weather approaches.
Thanks for joining us, Mike. That's Warning Coordination Meteorologist for the Hastings National Weather Service, Mike Moritz, talking about the spotter training classes hosted by the National Weather Service all the way through next month. For more on a spotter training class that everyone is welcome to attend, you can see that schedule for a class near you at the top of the homepage for the National Weather Service offices in Hastings, North Platte, Valley, and Goodland. I'm Paul Perkins on the Rural Radio Network.